Guys, welcome back to our channel Accounts Guru Gold. Learn accounting online. So we know how much is importance of accounts payable department, and considering that there are n number of vacancies are there into the market related to the accounts payable. So considering that, we thought to create one video which are going to discuss about what are the most asked questions related to the accounts payable and what are all the probable answers for that. So request viewers to watch the video till the end, like the video, share the video, and subscribe our channel to get the more practical knowledge and tap the bell icon to get the future video notification. So here we are, accounts payable interview questions and answers. Are you searching for accounts payable interview questions and answers? Here, in this video, we have aligned some of the top 25 account payable interview questions that can help freshers and experienced candidates to follow up and prepare well for their job interview. The first questions is related to accounts payable is what do you understand by accounts payable? So one thing is we would like to highlight here is that we have considered straightway what questions are related to that particular profile, but related to the basic questions about your introductions and your family background, your experience, your qualifications that you have to provide from your end. That's all related to the HR questions. So we have start with technical round, or you can say the straight way related to the profile related to the accounts payable. So what do you understand by accounts payable? Accounts payable or AP is an amount that a company needs to give to vendors for goods and services purchased on credit. It has to be paid off to its creditors or suppliers within a period. Accounts payable is type of existing liability of a company. So the accounts payable, it means that it's related to the payment of the vendors on which we used to purchase or get the services on credit. Related to that, we have to do the payment from the accounts payable department. In other words, we can say that accounts payable is due money which the company has to pay to the vendors or suppliers for goods or services received that have not yet been paid for. Accounts payable is considered as a liability and comes under the head current liabilities. It is a short-term debt payment that needs to be paid to avoid default. So the accounts payable is the department where all the invoices is used to book into the systems and we have to do the payment to the vendors, and it's a short-term liability. That accounts payable, it's a short-term liability and we have to do the payment with as per the due date, and it's going to be show under the current liabilities head. What steps would you take before approving an invoice for payment? Which are all the steps you are going to follow when you have to pay the payment or you have to process the payment of that invoice? So following steps should be taken. The first, validate the invoice once it is matched for checking any holds. If workflow is implemented, initiate approval for the invoice. Once the invoice is approved, approval not required. Status in case workflow is not implemented, you can go for payments. Create accounting after approval of invoice. And finally, for payments, you need to format billed. So what steps or what you are going to take care before processing the invoice? So the first thing is that the invoice should be matched with all the whatever we used to follow the three-way process. Respective stakeholders has to approve that invoice. If the workflow is there, through that workflow, that invoice should be get approved. You have to create an accounting after once the invoice has been approved, and then you have to do the payment as per the due date. What is the difference between billable and non-billable expenses? The billable expenses are the expenses incurred by you on behalf of your customers in performing duties, service, and supply. These expenses are recoverable from your customer by way of billing. Non-billable expenses are the expenses incurred by you for carry out your own business duties and responsibilities. Very essential to understand. Being the accounts payable team, the accounts payable team need to know that what is billable and non-billable expenses. The billable expenses is that expenses which we incurred on behalf of our customers, and that we are going to bill to our customers, and that's not our expenses. So there is no need to book that expenses into the P&L account, because that's we are going to do the recovery from our customers. And non-billable expenses, it means that we have incurred that expenses for carry out our own business duties and responsibilities, that we have to book into the P&L because that's our expenses. What steps would you take before making a payment? We should verify that any advances have been made, see that all the services goods delivered according to bill, any query is there to attend on that ultimately can be made payment. So you have to follow the steps is that before you are going to make the payment of that invoice, we need to check and verify either any advances have been made. If it's there, then we have to do the adjustment of that advance, and then we have to do the remaining payment. We have to ensure that all the goods and services, whatever is mentioned on the bill, that's delivered. And if any further query are there, then we have to get the clarification, or else we have to do the payment for that. Can you give a sample process flow for procure to pay cycle? The process flow for that is receipt of invoice and goods, quality control approval, verification with PO terms, creation liability, and then we have to do the payment after the due date. What does three-way match mean in accounts payable? We have one video on this in detail about a three-way match. A three-way match is the process of comparing the purchase order, the goods receipt note, and the supplier's invoice before approving a supplier's invoice for payment. So in a three-way match, we are going to do the matching with the purchase order, the goods receipt note, that's the GRN, and the supplier's invoice before approving a supplier's invoice for payment. So before we are going to do the payment, we have to do the three-way match. And the three-way match, it's going to be involve the purchase order. It's going to be comparison of purchase order with goods receipt note and supplier's invoice. How can three-way matching benefit your business? Since we have the three-way match, then how it's going to be give the benefit to our business? The three-way matching helps business track the origin of invoices and confirm their legitimacy to avoid fraud. So it's going to help the straightaway business to avoid the fraud. And then how? Because when we do the three-way match, we are ensuring doing the comparison between the purchase order, supplier invoice, and what the GRN has been done into the systems. So that's three talks we are going to verify. So it's going to be prevent to the fraud, saying that the legitimate purchase order is there, as per that purchase order invoice also is there, and as per that purchase order and supplier invoice we have done the GRN as well. So it's not going to be do any fraud related to that invoice. So it's going to be held for the business by doing the three-way match. What is the meaning of TDS and how is it charged? TDS is an acronym that stands for tax deducted at source, and it is a charge on the base amount. It is a simple tax deduction process. Under this process, if a person deductor is liable to make payment to any other person deductee will deduct tax at the source and transfer the balance amount to the deductee. The deducted TDS amount will be remitted to the central government. The first thing which we need to understand here is that the TDS we have to charge on the base amount and not on the gross amount. If your particular unit is exempt from the GST or taxes and the entire amount, if you are doing debit to your P&L account, that's the entire gross amount of that invoice. If you are taking to the P&L account, then you have to deduct the TDS on the gross amount, else you have to deduct the TDS on basic amount. And the basic amount, it means that that's before the tax amount. There are mainly two different types of TDS: TDS on salaried employees and non-salaried employees. And from the non-salaried employees, it's going to be cover, that's the contractors, professional services, rent, interest, commissions. That's all the part of the non-salaried employees. And one is a salaried employees. What is accounts payable cycle? So what is mean by the accounts payable cycle is that accounts payable cycle is also known as procure to pay. That's a P2P cycle. Is a service of processes which involves the purchase and payment department of the company and carry all necessary activities from placing an order to suppliers, purchasing goods and making final payment to the suppliers. So the accounts payable cycle, it means that it's another name of that is procure to pay, from the placing the purchase requisitions or the purchase order to doing the payment. That's going to be part of the procure to pay, from the procurement to till doing the payment of that invoice is entire P2P cycle. What is meaning of invoice? Invoice is a commercial document issued by a vendor to the accounts payable team of the buyer demanding payment for the goods services delivered. Invoice details, invoice date, invoice number, descriptions, and that invoice should be as per the GST compliance. If it's a GST invoice, that should be the tax invoice, and whatever GST number should be there on that invoice. How many type of invoices are there in accounts payable? So how many types of invoices are there? Some important invoices are accounts payable. That's the standard invoice, credit memo, debit memo, recurring invoice, expenses invoice, retention release, withholding tax invoices, prepayment invoices, interest invoices, commercial invoice, tax invoice, pro forma invoice, and e-invoice. There are lots of type of invoices in accounts payable. What is the difference between the two-way and three-way match? The two-way match, it is a used to compare the invoice received from vendor with the purchase order. So in a two-way match, it's going to do the comparison with invoice received from vendor and purchase order. And in a three-way match, it is used to match the details purchase order, that's a PO, goods receipt note, that's the GRN, and invoice document received from the vendor. In three-way match, the quantity and price is matched between PO and GRN and invoice received. So in a three-way match, it's going to be matched the quantity as well between the purchase order, GRN, and invoice received. But in a two-way match, only the invoice received from the vendor with the purchase orders is going to be matched into the two-way match. What is the formula for accounts payable turnover ratio? Accounts payable turnover ratio equal to net credit purchase divided by average accounts payable. Can you define accrual? An accrual is an expense or revenue incurred in a period for which no invoice or payment change hands by the end of the period. So that's going to be provision for expenses. What is aging schedule? It is a tabular representation of all the bills and invoices along with their respective ages, that is the date on which these become due. So the aging schedule, it means that we have to do the aging based on the invoice date. From the invoice date to due date, it's going to be the current due, and from that we have to take it into the overdue invoices. That's the aging. We have to bucketize that and we have to prepare the aging for that outstanding invoices. What is a four-way match? The four-way match is equal to, that's a purchase order, receipts, that's a GRN, invoice, and inspection report. So most of the entities are follow the four-way match as well instead of three-way match, because it's going to be give the more clarity about when we have to do the payment of that invoice. In addition to three-way match, here we are adding the inspection of that goods or confirmation on the services. What is accounting entry for when you import material? So when you are doing the import of materials, and what are all accounting entries you are going to pass into the systems? Entry for commercial invoice is that inventory account debit to vendor account credit. Entry by shipping bill or bill of entry, custom duty account debit, IGST, that's our input credit account debit to custom duty payable account. And when custom duty paid, custom duty payable account debit to bank account credit. So this entry we have to pass for the import of material. What is accounting entry for when you book service invoice? Expense account debit, GST account debit to TDS account debit to vendor account credit. If that services is eligible for TDS, then we have to deduct the TDS on that as per the threshold. If it's applicable, then we have to do the deduction of the TDS. How many invoices on average do you handle on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis? Answer this based on your previous experience. If you are working, then you have to give the answer, or answer for these questions is based on your own experience. Tell us the accounts payable challenges. So what account payable challenges do you think it's there into this profile? Slow processing, yes, that's the slow processing of the invoices. Matching errors, exceptional invoices and manual follow-up, unauthorized purchases, fraud and theft, disappearing invoices, and double payment. So disappearing invoices is the major challenge when we do the process of invoices. If that particular invoice itself is not reached at accounts payable team, then accounts payable team is not able to do the payment for that. And the double payment, yes, if if your system is not that much strong to capture based on your invoice number, if the same invoice number is in system it's allowing, then there are going to be error for that. So the major challenges are these. Is TDS applicable on advance payment? If you are doing the advance payment related to the services, then either the TDS is going to be applicable on that or not. Yes, TDS is applicable on advance payment as per the threshold. If the threshold is there, and if that advance payment is beyond the threshold, or if that vendor is going to render the services beyond the threshold, then we have to deduct the TDS on that. Does TDS applicable on provision for expenses? Yes, when we are closing the financial year. So here, when we are doing the provision for expenses on month, the TDS is not going to be applicable on that. But when we are closing the financial year, then the provision is going, then the TDS is going to be applicable on that provisions for expenses. What is accounts payable return back? The terms of return back means the liabilities, creditors or provisions which are credit balance payable. However, this is no longer required to pay. The balance may be for supply of material or services rendered in past more than 3 years. So if any services rendered, or we have purchased the materials from vendors and we haven't done the payment, and if it's beyond the 3 years, that's still as it is in the books as outstanding. Or if we have created any provisions and against that provision we haven't received the invoice, beyond the 3 years or 2 years, then we have to return back that amount into the system. So that's we have to debit to the your provision for expenses or the vendors, and we have to take that into the books as a income for that. What is mean by vendor reconciliations? Very essentials related to the accounts payable. We have to do the vendor reconciliations for that. The vendor reconciliation means statement showing difference of company payable to vendor account balances and vendor outstanding balances. It is a reconciled form, but both account balance company and vendor. If there is any advance to vendor, it will reduce the balance from company payable amount. So that is mean by vendor reconciliations. And the last, what do you mean by bank reconciliations? The bank reconciliation statements confirm that payments have been processed and cash collections have been deposited into a bank account. After all adjustments, the balance on a bank reconciliation statement should equal the ending balance of the bank reconciliations. Being the in charge of the accounts payable, these are all the reconciliations are very essential to understand. So what is mean by vendor reconciliations and what do you mean by bank reconciliations? So these are all the 25 questions most used to ask into the accounts payable interview. So what we have learned from this video is that what are the top 25 accounts payable interview questions and how you have to give the answer for that. So thanks for watching the video till the end. Request viewers to like the video, share the video, and subscribe our channel to get the more practical knowledge and tap the bell icon to get the future video notifications. And if you have any area where you want me to create a video, so request viewers to please put it into the comment. We'll try to make it the video on that. Thank you.